Okay, on this one, I want to further explain the definition between astrology and astronomy. Because you can have astrology, you can have astronomy and not study astrology. You can do that, but there's no way you can study astrology and not study astronomy. Astrology is the spiritual side of science, if you will. And astronomy is just the science side. That's why in many cases, I'm not saying in all cases, but in many cases, scientists can learn, and even astronomers can learn the stars in the heavens and still say that there is no God. Because they have the scientific side of it, but they don't have the spiritual side of it. Well, astrology is the spiritual side of science. So I'm going to say this again. You can have astronomy or study astronomy and not study astrology. But there's no way you can study astrology and not study astronomy. Because in order to know the influences of the stars, you must learn the stars. In order to know the influences of the constellations, you must learn the influences of the constellation. And that's astronomy. So the definition of astrology, once again, in the Webster Dictionary, and once again I use the 1828 edition of the Webster's Dictionary. And it means a science which teaches to judge the effects and influences. Notice the word influences. Teaches to judge the effects and influences of the stars and to foretell future events by their situation and different aspect. So it is for influences and to foretell future events. What is prophecy if it's not future events? And once again, once I clearly lay this foundation, I will start hitting some of the prophecies. And I'm going to tell you again the chapters. Ezekiel chapter 1, he got it from the heavens. He clearly states the heavens were open. In Ezekiel chapter 10. And also in Revelation chapter 4. And then I'm also hit a very interesting point that Jesus Christ himself said, but I got to ease into all that. So it is the influences of the stars and to foretell future events, not to worship as they wrongly say that it is. Astronomy means the science which teaches the knowledge of celestial bodies, their magnitudes, aspects, eclipses, and order. So there go the scientific side of it. So you see, you can have astronomy without astrology, but you cannot have astrology without astronomy. Now, I'm going to look at Job, chapter 38, and I'm going to start reading from verse 31. Now, God is talking to Job, and God asked Job in verse 31, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades?" The Pleiades is a group of stars in Taurus, the bull. Now notice he said, can you bind the influences of the Pleiades, which is a group of stars in the constellation of Taurus, the bull? Well, the definition of astrology, once again, is a science which teaches to judge the effects and influences. Well, in Job chapter 38, verse 31, I just read it, the influences. And the rest of it says, and to foretell future events. I'm going to foretell or show you how Ezekiel foretold future events, which ties in perfectly with this definition. Perfectly with it. But yet they say it is evil. Astrology is not evil. They wrongly tag it by saying it is the worship of the stars. No, Egypt went wrong when they started worshiping the celestial bodies. The Greeks went wrong the same way. So they went wrong. But that don't mean that astrology is wrong. I just read to you the definition. And that is not the worship of the stars. Verse 32. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth? Mazzaroth is the Hebrew word zodiac. It literally means zodiac, the Hebrew meaning. In his season. Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Arcturus is another constellation in the heavens of a bear with his cubs. So he asked Job, can you guide him out in his season? Verse 33, knowest thou the ordinance of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? So I'll read that again. He said, knowest thou the ordinance of heaven? Where ordinance in the Greek is number 27, not the Greek, the Hebrew, is number 2708, 2708, and it means appointed. It also means statue, manner, but I just picked out that one word. You can look it up for yourself. But it means appointed. So they have been appointed. Then he asks at the end of that verse, can thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? He said it flat out, can you set, and this God speaking, asking Job, can he set their dominion in the earth? That word dominion in the Hebrew means jurisdiction. It's number 4896 in the Hebrew, and it's also 78, or it's from 7860 in the Hebrew. But 4896 means jurisdiction. That's authority. And 7860 means ruler, overseer. That's what dominion means. So he asked Job, can you set their dominion in the earth? I actually, again, it's not that influence, just as the definition for astrology says. That is influence. So, once again, I'm going to say it the last time, you can have astronomy or study astronomy and leave out astrology. And this is where a bunch of scientists go wrong, because they leave out the spiritual side of science. But you cannot have astrology without astronomy. And in the religious world, this is where the church, or the religious world, church world on the world stage today go wrong at, because they totally leave the scientific side of God out. They don't even bring it up. They put every prophecy as though it's pertaining to the earth and the earth alone, where you're going to see differently as I dig into this thing. But I had to lay a clearer definition of this, because astrology is wrongly taught in the church world on the world stage today. It is wrongly taught. So I hope that gives you a clearer understanding. And in the next video, I will start with Genesis chapter 1 and show on day 4, when God created the stars, how he created them for signs and for seasons. And I will start digging into this. Bless you in Jesus' name.